Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. So the other day I had made a post on my social media accounts, and it was related to my good news that I got when I visited my doctor and saw that my A1C was under control. Alhamdulillah, was brought down to 5.7 from 9.9 in a span of 5 months. And it generated a lot of questions from people wanting to know how that I did it. And of course, not only had I brought my A1C down to 5.7, which for those who are not diabetic, right, that is essentially the normal range for glucose in the system, as well also as a good indicator of insulin resistance or the lack thereof. But I had lost just shy of 30 pounds, 27 pounds. And also not included in that was the fact that I also greatly reversed a lot of the arthritis that I was experiencing. I get a lot of arthritic issues, especially in my hands and my feet. And so people were like, man, what did you do? Or how did you do it? And I had put up something about doing a wet fast. And people were like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean a water fast? Or, of course, being Muslim, we fast the month of Ramadan. And so they were trying to, was this was this the same as that kind of fasting? So one, I just want to go briefly into what my regimen was, to encourage people who, whether you're dealing with a metabolic issue like diabetes or some other health concern that you want, I do believe that the fasting that I did, God willing, can be of some aid to you, especially for those that have perhaps been on a yo-yo or have had a protracted struggle getting their diabetes under control, or perhaps some other, metabolic condition. So I just want to put this out there as a little bit of brief, succinct information to encourage you that perhaps it will aid you in your journey to better health. So a quick backstory. I am a type 2 diabetic, and I've struggled with diabetes for probably the better part of 15 years. And by struggle, I mean that despite, efforts, both in terms of personal attempts at, dieting and exercise, as well as various prescriptions given to me by doctors, endocrinologists, and whatnot, I continue to find myself unable to get control of my diabetes, and my blood sugar continued to, throughout these 15 years, continued to kind of spiral out of control with some brief periods of restraint. So several years ago, I tried keto. I know that's a very popular fad now. And I was able to lose some weight. Matter of fact, I did keto for probably 3 or 4 months. So just a little bit shorter than the period that I've been doing this regimen. And I was able to lose almost the same amount of weight. I think I lost close to 25 pounds. And I did see an improvement in my blood sugars, though for me, keto was unsustainable. I had major issues with energy, and I just simply found the extreme carb reduction to be something that was unsustainable for me. And so keto didn't work. And of course, my own doctor had put me on a varying regimen of different injections and drugs, of which, despite those, I still continue to have persistent issues with my blood sugar, as well as many of the side effects. In fact, some I had to go off of because of my body in particular has an extreme sensitivity to different types of medication. And so then that caused even more of a yo-yo effect of going on and off medication and so on. So to break it down briefly, just to go into what was it that I did? So what I did, which is described by, for instance, Jason Fung in his book on fasting, and he's not the author of this, but I found his book and some of his lectures particularly helpful, is that it's described as a wet fast. Now, as Muslims, what we do, again, would be termed as a dry fast, meaning during the period of fasting or during the period in which one does not intake anything into the body, one is not allowed to intake anything, right? So the Muslim fast, there is no intake of food and there's no intake of water. And this would be described as a wet fast. Now, I know many people, including some diabetics, that when they fast the month of Ramadan, they do exceptionally well. And they find improvements in their blood sugar and in their overall health. I was one of those people that actually Ramadan was extremely difficult, and actually it did not work well for me in terms of health benefits. It's definitely, for those who are able, even if there's some difficulty, right, it's a great means of drawing closer to God. However, for me, I experienced great difficulty and did not get any of the residual health benefits. Then there is the water fast, which is just as it sounds. It's a period, whether it's a part of a day or perhaps even over the course of several days, where the only intake is exclusively water. And then what I did is called a wet fast, meaning that there is a period of intake and a period of breaking fast, or a period of no intake in terms of calories. And then there is a period of intake. However, during the no intake period, one is able to take in things that are wet, like water or black coffee or plain black or green tea, that have 0 calorie. And this includes, and I'm sure somebody out here in YouTube land will disagree, but as a general rule is that it has to be 0 calorie, and that includes various forms of sweeteners, whether that's a stevia or some of the other concocted ones like Splenda, which still show to have some insulin and therefore metabolic stimulation. So do as you please. I'm merely describing my process that during my fasting period, I only drank either water, sometimes sparkling mineral water like Gerolsteiner or Pellegrino, or some other form of mineral water, but that has no sweeteners, just plain Jane, right? Of which I would sometimes add a slice of lemon to, and only lemon, no other citrus, no lime, no orange. I might put in a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, or I would drink black coffee, either hot or iced, but again, absolutely black. No milk, no cream, no sugar. I know others will say, oh, you could add a dollop of cream. I'm only describing what I did, right? So I would either drink water or black coffee, and on occasion, some iced black tea. But I tend to be more of a coffee person. I like coffee. And so I would say predominantly my intake was water and coffee during the fasting period. So what does that mean? My daily routine would be to stop eating at 6 p.m. That means I have no longer any calorie intake from 6 p.m. until approximately 10 a.m. So my fasting window is approximately 16 hours. And I found that for me, in the state that I was, my degraded health state, that I needed to have an increased window of time. And I would fluctuate anywhere between 16 to 18 hours of my fast. And again, during that period, the only intake was water or coffee. Once I would get to my fast breaking period, 10 a.m., between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., I would typically eat whatever I wanted within reason, again, tailored to my specific needs. So that includes a low carb regimen, not 0 carb or not extreme low like keto, but, a fairly low regimen of carbs, also being selective of certain carbs over others. So I found that my body in particular had a hyper insulin response to corn as well as white potatoes, but not as much to rice, even white rice, and sweet potatoes, obviously. And so the carbs of choice for me were typically sweet potatoes, rice, and some other mildly fibrous, starchy vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, that kind of thing. And then aside from that, I actually would eat mainly whatever I wanted. A typical breakfast for me would be 4 to 5 eggs, anywhere between a half to a full package of beef bacon, or a half of a package of chicken breakfast sausage. And I would have that with maybe a whole avocado. And that would be my breakfast. And of course, I would cook everything in organic grass-fed butter. For a typical secondary or tertiary meal, I would have a fairly sizable salad that I would have a mixed greens, arugula, lots of bitters. So I would have like arugula, dandelion, and then whatever, spring mix. I would drench it in a lot of olive oil, really good high quality olive oil, and I would put maybe some walnuts or pine nuts in there, along with typically, I actually love fresh mozz. I love fresh mozzarella. And so I would put fresh mozzarella in there, and that's what I would have because, if you're on not a carnivore diet literally, but if you're on a diet that is pretty high in protein and fats, by the time you get around 50 years old, you might need a little bit of help moving your bowels. So I needed the fiber, I needed the dietary fiber, the roughage, right, to move that. And then again, in the evening, I would probably have, some other type of meal that, again, leaned heavier towards fats and proteins. Like I might have salmon or chicken thighs or a ribeye. And occasionally, I might have for me, I would make a burrito, even occasionally getting a chipotle. Although for me, what I would do is I would get half the white rice, double the guacamole, no black beans, because again, for me as a diabetic, for a non-diabetic might not be that issue, but for me, there's both an issue with black beans in terms of being a little bit high in carbs, as well as just for me, I tend to have an issue processing various types of beans and legumes where it would kind of irritate cause inflammatory issues with my arthritis. So my burrito would be like half white rice, extra avocado or guacamole, sour cream, a little bit of cheese, and then sometimes what they call the fajita veggies, right? So it's basically like a veggie burrito, but lower on the carbs, high on the fat. So that is kind of a typical view at my snapshot, meaning that I wasn't overly analytical. I wasn't doing macros, other than keeping a rough eyeball on my carb intake. Obviously, I'm not doing any processed sugar at all. In fact, some days where I really had a Jones for sugar, I would eat a whole big carton of blueberries. And even though they have a significant amount of fructose, I found that the insulin spike was nominal and it quickly went off. And so I would eat a lot of berries. I would not eat things like bananas, so no smoothies, that kind of thing. I would actually go more for whole fruits. I also would snack on macadamia nuts, almonds, walnuts, pecans, pine nuts. So I ate a lot of nuts as well. So again, getting the fats, getting the fibers. I happen to love, there's this one seaweed that you can get at Trader Joe's. It's this teriyaki roasted seaweed that has virtually no carbs. It's extremely low on sugar and it comes in a pack. And I love it, right? I love seaweed. I love the benefits. So I was eating those kinds of things. But again, overall, not being super meticulous during my eating period. And to make a long story short, the greatest benefit was the stick-it-to-itness of it, meaning that I did this every single day. I fasted 16 to 18 hours every single day from 6 p.m. to 10 a.m. And that's where you really see the magic happen, so to speak, is when you just simply commit to doing a thing and you let the long-term benefits. So as you will see, I'm going to throw up a quick screenshot. My sugar when I started doing this in April was at 450, which is extremely high, and my A1C was at 9.9. Within approximately a week of beginning my 16-hour fast, my sugar immediately drops down to normal levels. And as you can see, it pretty much has plateaued there ever since. And I have been continuing to do this at this point, because somebody asked me, wow, now that you've done it, are you going to stop? And the answer is no. I feel incredibly good to where this is just kind of like the new me. I just simply fast 16 hours every single day now. And the benefit is I'm off of insulin, I'm off of all injections, and I've cut my other diabetes medication, which is basically metformin, I've cut it in half. And my doctor, who I just visited this week, said that he recommended that we continue to do this again for another 3 months. By the way, he was completely stupefied. He was shocked. So he said, continue to do this. This is wonderful progress. And if you find yourself getting jittery, right, because of as your weight loss and the long-term effects on your body of the weight loss will, of course, be a decrease in insulin resistance, you may find yourself having to attenuate your metformin intake, but nothing drastic. And then at the end of that 3 or 4 months, we'll make some adjustments. And I say this that there are many wonderful things about Western medicine. Western medicine is really great at intervention, but is not great at being proactive or prescriptive because it quite often takes an additive approach. And this is not meant to be a knock against Western medicine, because again, some things it does absolutely almost miraculously. But we often look for something additive to a problem. So your blood sugar is too high, take this pill versus subtract something. Or even in very kind of clumsy summaries like was diet and exercise. Actually, many studies will show that exercise has a minimal impact. It has a great impact on health, particularly psychological health, hormonal health, but it doesn't have quite as much impact on blood sugar as you think that it would. And then diet itself is often kind of like a little too succinct. Well, what do we mean by diet? We often don't think of, for instance, fasting 16 hours a day as diet. We think of diet as, only eat rabbit food or only eat meat and cheese or go on a carnivore diet or, whatever. We don't tend to think, we don't think from a subtractive point of view. One of the biggest issues that we have in, I think, Western now global civilization is abundance. We just simply have an abundance of food, and we have an abundance of time to consume food, and we tend to consume it from a point of view not of nutrition, but of entertainment or means of self-medicating or a safety blanket or whatever the various psychological reasons we can think of. The outcome of that is that we don't tend to think of health from a subtractive point of view. We tend to think of it only as an additive. Add this supplement, right? Take human growth hormone, take DHEA, take this number of units of vitamin D a day. We always tend to think about it from an additive point of view, not realizing the benefits of combining also with a subtractive point of view for optimal health. And so that's where I'm really seeing some real blessings and insights, alhamdulillah, is by incorporating a subtractive point of view to all of this. So I hope that this helps to encourage you, and I will say in conclusion, you must give it time to work. You know, your body, whatever your health problem is, generally, and again, I'm not a doctor, but generally, you will not have gotten into whatever your health situation is generally overnight. And therefore, it's not going to be overnight as well as to see benefits. So in fact, even though I did see an immediate impact within a week of doing the 16-hour wet fast, I didn't see any weight loss, and certainly my A1C didn't come down in 1 week. My numbers came down, but it took, 5 months for my A1C to come down. It took, I would say it probably took a good 2.5 to 3 months for the weight loss to happen. And I should add to this, the A1C reduction, the glucose reduction, the weight reduction, the inflammation reduction. I should say that this was done with no exercise. Only, to be quite honest, in the last week, and I'm actually a little bit sore today, because I have not worked out in probably a year. And so what I'm saying is a nearly 50-year-old man with not great genes and with obviously a pretty aggressive form of metabolic syndrome was able to lose 30 pounds, reduce his A1C to normal levels, and reduce his arthritis and his anti-inflammation issue or inflammation issues that he had within a 5-month period of only fasting 16 hours a day, which includes overnight. And so only now am I really getting to the point where I'm starting to add exercise to my, to my regimen. So I hope this helps to clarify what I did. I hope it will encourage you, if you've experienced frustration, to do so. And whether you're dealing with a metabolic syndrome or just looking for some other ways to improve your health, consider this subtractive method as well. May Allah bless all of you in your journey to better health and in your journey to Him. And may Allah bless our Master Muhammad, his family, and his companions. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.